Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the session. My name is Jagan. Let's introduce our last speaker of the day, Mr. Srinivas Savaram. He holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from AU, a master's degree in computer science, and a graduate certificate in software engineering from GMU, and also a director at UNU, and the head of Purple Digital, which is a digital marketing firm in Visakhapatnam. Before this, he worked in few technology companies and was the operations head of an HR consulting company in Vizag. He is a charter secretary and past president of Rotary Club Vizag Metro and was a founding member of Valte Toastmasters Club and Visakha Oratos. And also, he is a co-founder of two chapters of India Literacy Project, which is a non-profit organization. He is none other than Mr. Srinivas Savaram, Head IT Consulting at Indegenius, who will be speaking to us on new tech-based sectors, green tech, and mobility. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice introduction, quite lengthy. Let me get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for the delay. Today, I was asked to talk to all of you regarding this idea of green tech and mobility and startups in that field and opportunities. Just give me a second so that I can share my screen. Okay. So, is everyone able to
Yes,
see
sir.
the
Yes,
presentation? Okay.
yes, yes.
Great. All right. So, that should be in presentation mode. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go with the agenda that I'd like to follow for the first half of the meeting. I'd like to quickly talk about what is green tech, why is green tech something that, why is it necessary? What are some of the existing green techs that are there, especially in India? And then opportunities that are available for, uh, again, opportunities that are available worldwide, but we'll concentrate to a large extent on India. And then the second half, I'll quickly cover mobility. Uh, I'm sure most of you are aware of it, so I don't think I need to give a lot of explanation there, but we'll talk a little bit about why mobility, kinds of mobility startups, and then opportunities in mobility. If any of you have a question, please let me know in the chat box or raise your hand and I'll try to answer your questions. So when we talk about green tech, the primary areas that we are referring to, or most people refer to, are things related to energy, atmospheric science, agriculture, material science, and hydrology. Hydrology as in watersheds, watershed management, and so on. That's many things that we have been doing for a long time, but seem to have lost our way in the innovation process of manufacturing or industrial age, and we are trying to go back into nature and learn from that. Speaking of nature, have any of you come across this idea of biomimicry? So there is this concept of biomimicry that has been, I'm sure it's been emulated for a long time, but in the Western world, they've started doing that about a couple of decades ago. There's a really nice, no, it's not just about artificial photosynthesis. It's pretty much mimicking what happens in biology around us. So, for example, taking the spider web and the form of the spider web as well as the tensile strength of the web itself is something that is has been shown to be I guess that's why we got Spider-Man movies where the web slinger is able to jump from buildings to buildings and so on. The strength of that web itself is much, much, much bigger than what a spider actually, um, what the spider needs for itself. But obviously, it's for catching prey and quite a large prey and many other um, many other things that are available or that can be emulated. And one of those, again, in terms of when you talked about artificial photosynthesis, IBM have developed a solar panel generator technology, which they based on the formation of a tree, and I believe that it was called the solar tulip or solar bulb, which is in the form of a tree, and because of the shape, because of the design, it was it was found to be much more efficient than solar panels. Um, so now that you are, so people have started seeing what's happening in biology, seeing how a beehive is made, how the bees survive in a beehive. People are looking at how water is pumped by a tree. A small plant is able to go and pump water from whatever the soil that it absorbs and pumps it to its tips. But imagine a huge tree, hundreds of feet high, get water to the tips of its topmost leaves. How is it doing that? What is the physics involved in it? What's the biology? What about the chemistry? All of those are being used to try and create better things in our world for human use. So, why is green tech necessary? I don't know if there's any other, I mean, whether any of us need a reminder that green tech is necessary given the climate change that's happening around us. And I'm sure more and more of us are aware of the polar ice caps melting. Our access to water is limited. Because of our access to water being limited, we are, uh, there were wars based on water were predicted 20 years ago. It hasn't really happened, but maybe it hasn't happened at the scale of a war. But if you see what's happening with the river water sharing, which was going on with Bangalore and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and now the Krishna water, Godavari water with Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and many other examples, the Brahmaputra river, you will understand very quickly. We will realize how important many of the things that nature has given us in abundance, and we have not utilized it properly, and therefore we are paying a price. And climate change is obviously one of those things that we need to look at. And environmental protection, of course. If you want to save ourselves and our planet, we need to protect our environment. And how better to save our environment than to look at green tech? So, when we talk about green tech, now that I've given you a few of these things, what do you think some of the green tech companies are doing? Some are very easy to quickly understand, but does anyone have an idea of what green tech spans in terms of industries? What does it cover? You can unmute yourself and talk, or you can put something in the chat box. It's an afternoon session. Afternoon sessions are very difficult after people have lunch, so, and I always prefer interactive things. So, well, I've given you a little bit of a clue. So, because I've talked about water and protecting the environment. So, yeah, so environment friendly technology. So, what does that encompass? That's a good answer. Uh, but what does that encompass? When you say environment friendly technology, what do you think are some environment friendly technologies and where can they be applied?
Sir,
Yes,
okay, okay. It's reducing the carbon dioxide and other destructive gases, like
absolutely.
like the servers and
Absolutely.
okay.
So you want to create server farms which are not as energy intensive as before, which means a lot of people manufacturing chips are looking at how to reduce the heat that's being developed there. And when you talk about heat, reduction of heat, you need to have better materials to be able to withstand the heat that's generated when a computer is working. So that's there. Yes, things based on emission norms. Emission norms are being set, but I don't know if many countries are moving forward as fast as they should. Our Prime Minister has said that we are going to, we care about the environment, but it's unfortunate that he gave a target of 2070 instead of 2050. I wish he was a little bit more aggressive on that. Um, we could be pushing for emission norms. We've seen auto rickshaws, we've seen buses, we've seen all kinds of lorries and vehicles traveling on the road and huge gusts of smoke coming out, dark plumes of smoke coming out of their tailpipes. And we we know that the air quality in many of our cities is not at a healthy state and we need good emission norms. So that's one area. Any other thoughts? Yes, wastewater management, very good. Wastewater management and recycling and reusing. So, wastewater management, some of you may have heard and others may not have. The Japanese are basically using brown water for their flush tanks. So uh, they have a wash basin, and when they wash their hands, that water is no longer clean for using to wash our hands, but it can be used to flush the latrine. So they are collecting the brown water and using that to flush the latrine so that it serves two purposes. That's one. You filter out the sewage processing units that are there in most of the cities, sewage treatment plants. That's one. We know the harm that is we are causing if you're not treating things, and you must have seen pictures recently of both the river Ganga as well as rivers and lakes in Bangalore and the Yamuna River in Delhi having this uh, soap bubbles or bubbles flowing all along the river because there's been pollution and people have been dumping things into the river assuming that it's going to clean itself and obviously we are paying a penalty for that. Any other thoughts?
like alternative energy usage.
Yes, very good. So alternative energy usage, uh, the two or three things that we know immediately that come to mind are
Solar and what,
solar and
then Wind energy, yeah, right.
Yes. So we know about solar and wind. But there is also this technology that is being tried, and that is what you can see on the right hand side of your screens, that is wave energy. So the seas and the oceans have waves. Why not use that to generate energy? And so they have been trying that. It hasn't succeeded as much as they would like it to because of the initial cost of setup. Just as we have abundant water on our planet, but when it comes to drinking water, we have only 3% of drinking water. That's a 3% of water that's available for human consumption, out of which 2% is there in the polar ice caps. And if that melts, all our cities are going to, many of our coastal cities are going to be underwater. And so we can't allow the melting to happen. So one way to get water would be to do desalination plants so that we can make the salt water into regular water, drinkable, potable water. But desalination plants are expensive. So the capital cost, the initial cost of a plant is expensive. So people are trying for other forms of other ways to for desalination. Solar panels have been improving in their efficiency as we go along, and they're looking at many different things, including fireflies, scientists, to look at how they are able to take the energy, generate the energy so that they can shine brightly at night when it's dark. And they're looking at things like that to improve the efficiency. They're looking at spraying of glasses and painting on regular glass paints so that they become uh, solar panels themselves, regular glass paints, and we can basically trap solar energy. Therefore, our homes will be cooler. Plus, we are able to generate electricity there. Now, there's one image in the middle above the wind farms, the huge wind turbines. Any guesses what that image is about? Okay, I'm going to assume that all of you are thinking very hard and you're um, you're trying to come up with an answer, but and some of you no, that's green lawns, right? So this is not. Yeah, it is nuclear energy. Those are nuclear power plants. No, yeah, for wave energy you could do that, but Niagara Falls, if you're going to put any um, wave energy related instrumentation, they might the entire tourism industry might collapse. So there's this give and take that we need to consider when we're talking about things. But nuclear power. Now, one of the things with nuclear power is it's supposed to be in terms of our energy requirement and in terms of addressing climate change. I've been told I've read a few articles that it is it can get us to the stage of stopping climate change fastest. However, the problem with stopping climate change the fastest is okay, but there is a problem with the idea of a nuclear power plant because there is this word that is used by people, especially people in the US, but in many places, called NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't mind having nuclear power plants and nuclear energy, but I don't want a nuclear power plant in my backyard, close to my house, close to my city, close to my town, my village, whatever, because of the nuclear accidents that have happened, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, and so on. And there's an argument from both sides of people who are saying, hey, we need to use it, and people who are saying, no, it's not safe. They are one argument that has recently come up is if you look at first of all, the nuclear accidents that have been very rare. And even though they have killed a few people, a lot of people, and lives are important, not using clean energy like that is going to cause a problem because many more people are dying from breathing in polluted air. I mean, there are documentaries about the air in Delhi and surroundings, and maybe it's the same in Bombay and other major cities, but Delhi gets the most attention. And the air that people in Delhi are breathing is not at all safe. And so they have lots of children, adults, and senior citizens who are paying a price. And so, you know, slow death versus maybe possible death is the argument that people are making. But then the biggest issue that we have with nuclear energy, nuclear power plants, is the wastage that gets generated. The nuclear waste that is there, it needs to be saved somewhere, and because it's so radioactive and the half-life is hundreds and thousands of years, how do we make sure that we can save it safely so that it doesn't leak into our water and our soil and then make things radioactive and poisonous in a different way, in another way. So there are arguments for and against that. Now, now that we've covered alternative energy, we should also be looking at electric vehicles. There are many cities across India which have started, they've introduced fleets of electric buses so that they can reduce their carbon footprint. I don't know if you can see the image clearly, but the leftmost bus has zero emission written on it because it's electric vehicles and therefore they're not really burning fossil fuels, and when they're not burning fossil fuels, they're not emitting anything that is toxic. There's one other thing that needs to be considered, and that consideration is making of the batteries and making of the electric vehicles themselves is not exactly the greenest of processes, and how do we handle that? So one of the things that I've been doing for most of you who have been listening is you might have observed that I am telling you a few things, but I'm also giving you alternative points of view for and against certain things because most of you are faculty, professors, uh, or researchers, and these are things that I feel that when you come across a problem and you say, hey, this is an interesting thing that I could work on. So Srinivas is saying, there are people who are saying this is good and there are people who are saying this is bad. How can I do something to remove the bad and make something better? Rather than just being good, I'll make it better or make it the best. So I'm just trying to put some thoughts out there so that you can consider them and then figure out either for yourself or for the students that you will be encouraging that you come across and giving them some food for thought, giving them some ideas on what they can work on and see how they can use this opportunities in these technologies, green tech that's available. So of course, when we talk about electric vehicles, it's not just buses, right? You already have seen and have heard of electric cars that are coming out, electric scooties, electric cycles, electric auto rickshaws, and so on. So, and of course CNG, which is, well, it's still coming from, I guess, a source that is not so clean, but at least we have an ability to, it's cleaner than petrol and diesel and so on. So when you look at all those vehicles, those two-wheelers and the three-wheelers and the bicycles that are coming out, those are all electric. Um, then there is this company called Source Global. You search for Source Water, you'll be able to find this green tech company. What they are doing is they're trying to grab water from the humidity in the air, the moisture in the air. They're trapping that moisture and they're converting it into water. Now, typically, a process of trapping water in the moisture is very expensive. There is, in another part of Africa, there is less technology intensive thing where they're trying to use some nets, but the amount of water that it collects is a lot less than what this particular technology seems to be doing. And so this company decided that it's going to innovate by saying, okay, I need a lot of power, electricity to convert to trap the moisture from the air. And so I'm going to use solar panels to do that. And in turn collect water and provide water to places which do not have access to water right now. And they are in many places in the world, including large parts of India. Any of you are interested, you can just search for source water and then you'll find the YouTube link and other things related to that. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of plant-based meats. There are two different kinds of meats that are being manufactured right now. A lot of work has been done outside of India for the past 15, 20 years, and they finally are at a stage where for at least 5 to 8 years, they are already selling fake meat based on meat that is manufactured from plant cells. They're able to use stem cell technology, they're able to use basically work at molecular level to coax plant cells to structure themselves in the form of what organic, not human, but animal cells would behave like. And based on that, they're trying to get the texture, they're trying to get the taste, they're trying to get the feel. So lots of different things that they're working on. And a couple of companies have been really huge in that area. But two companies that have started the most recent one that was taken up, that was invested in, that has been in the news in the last 1 week or 2 weeks, happens to be Anushka and Virat's company, Blue Tribe Foods. Actually, Blue Tribe Foods happens to be a company that was already existing. These two people decided to invest in it, the celebrities. Before they, already Ritesh and Janelia Deshmukh have an Imagine Meats company that they have already been a part of, and they have invested and they are trying to promote it. All of these, there are two different kinds of meats that are being grown here. One is based on plant-based meat, so that anybody who is vegetarian need not ever worry. Well, if they are interested in eating meat, but they don't want to because they don't want to harm animals, well, you're not harming animals anymore. And two, there are people who are afraid that I don't want to accidentally eat meat. I want to make sure that I'm eating only plant-based things. That's one other option, and that's one way of making meat. The another thing that they've done is rather than grow cows, buffaloes, chicken, pigs, ducks, or whatever it is that you make and you breed in factories, what is called as factory farming, which is in some cases extremely cruel because the entire life of that chicken or that cow or that pig happens to be stuck in a cage from the time that it's brought into the factory till the time that it's killed off, or its milk is you get the milk from the cow, and then once it's the production comes down, they push it off into beef or the chickens, and once they start giving you less eggs, they're going to push it off into meat and so on. They basically decided that they're going to take meat cells, animal cells, and grow again using stem cell technology into meat. So there are many, many advantages. The two advantages that you see that you can imagine here, one is the whole idea of being a vegan, vegetarian, and so on. But the second one is it's climate friendly. For making 1 pound of beef, you basically end up using some 5,000 liters of water. And for making 1 pound of other red meat like pork and so on, you end up using 2,000 liters of water. For chicken, you end up using 500 liters of water. But with these processes, you can reduce that meat consumption, the water consumption. You can reduce the food that is grown. Cows need to be fed, and that farmland can be used for growing crops that humans can consume. So, in many different ways, and the greenhouse gases, the carbon dioxide, the methane gases that are produced by these animals, again, can be reduced because we are not going to consume, we're not using them to create meat. Therefore, there are lots of advantages for plant-based meat. Speaking of a couple of you talked about reusing and recycling. There are many, many, many companies that are doing that in India itself. One of them has a person from Vizag also, from where I am speaking to all of you, who's running this as out of Gurgaon, I believe, and yeah, it is Gurgaon, and it's called 3R Zero Waste Private Limited, and they're mostly concentrating on e-waste. One of the things that we do is we buy cell phones and we buy laptops and we buy other electronic equipment, but people are changing cell phones and everything every couple of months or 6 months or 1 year, and you don't want to throw away that cell phone. In a few cases, you give it to somebody else, but in most cases, you keep it and you're not doing anything with it. So recycling that is something that is going to be helpful in reducing our impact on nature. Speaking of recycling, this entire country of Sweden has run out of garbage because they've done such a fantastic job of recycling and reusing and all that, that their wastage has come down to like
Happy to announce
5%.
what accuracy. Announce. Rishab.
Do you have a question? Ms. Pujari Nisha Gupt, thank you. Um, So Sweden is now importing garbage a couple of years ago from Norway. And if Norway can't generate enough garbage for them, they're going to start reaching out to other countries to import garbage because they're recycling many materials, and whatever they can't recycle, they're putting it into incinerator and they're burning that. And from the heat that's generated from burning of these things, they're able to generate power. And so they need those power things to work. If they don't have garbage, all of this is going to come to a standstill, and therefore they're actually importing garbage. Imagine countries actually doing this nowadays when all we do, and if we see any railway station that we go to or many other parts of our villages and towns which are not having a good municipal corporation infrastructure, waste management, especially railway stations. The platforms have been cleaned up in many places, but the train just needs to pull out of the station, and within 1 minute, you'll see heaps and heaps of garbage. We just are not using enough recycling and reusing capacity that we actually have or we could to make our country a much greener and cleaner place, like the Prime Minister keeps saying, Swachh Bharat, right? So we could be doing a lot more related to that. And so there are opportunities that you can look at in terms of green tech, because there is this beautiful place that recently came into prominence very close to Vishakhapatnam, in the current Vishakhapatnam district, which is going to change in a few weeks or a couple of months when the districts are going to be reorganized in our state. There is this place called Vanjangi, and this Vanjangi has, if you go up there, you see a sea of clouds. That's the picture that you're seeing on your screens. You need to trek up a hill, and you trek up the hill, and this is what you get to see pretty much all day, of course, especially in the early in the morning. But we humans, while nature gives us all the beauty that is there, we humans sometimes behave worse than beasts. And so what people have been doing is they've been going and dumping garbage because they need to go to this spot to see it as a place, a wonderful place to visit. But hey, I visited the place. I don't care about my fellow Indians. I don't care about the animals and plants and birds and trees in this area. I don't care about the people living in this area. And I don't care about other people who will come to this area. I did my job. I came, I saw. Now I'm going to leave this trash behind. And a couple of volunteers, some 60, 70 volunteers, went all the way from Vizag to this place about 100 kilometers from where we are, and they collected garbage, and in just a few hours they collected much more than what you see in this picture. Why am I showing you this picture? Once again, I am showing you this picture not to say, hey, there's an opportunity to put trash in places, but I'm saying there's an opportunity to, look at, hey, can we make our tourism more sustainable? How do we make our tourism more sustainable? How do we bring about changes in human behavior, which is the biggest challenge that we are going to have? How? And when people are given an opportunity, they will change. It's not like they don't want to, which is why it's well known that, when we go to another country, we are very clean, we are very obedient, we follow all the traffic rules, we follow all the sanitation rules, all the municipal corporation rules, whatever, use trash cans. But the minute we step back in our country, we treat our country like a garbage can or a trash can, and start dumping and littering things everywhere. And we think, well, we are a free country, therefore I have the freedom to drive on the wrong side of the road, and so on. And ending up causing thousands and thousands of accidents, lakhs and lakhs of deaths. But we just don't want to think and wait and stop. And so there's an opportunity for us, for some of us, to be able to say, hey, maybe I can set up a trash collection point here. Maybe I can set up a recycling thing there. Maybe I can sell recyclable bags, recyclable material there, so that any food that people bring in, they can use these bags, and when they trash them, they will not accumulate like plastic, but they're going to be decomposable. Many other ideas that you can think of that you can probably relate to and come up with. I just thought I will tell you, hey, there's an opportunity in this. And of course, one of the things that we've had for a very long time in our country is we've lived very close to nature, and we've decided that uh, we've always been environment friendly for a very, very long time. But as technology has advanced, as time has become less, we have a situation where we no longer use environmental friendly plates, cups, and so on. We are going with plastic plates, styrofoam plates, and all kinds of other things. I hope some of you can see the irony in this, in the picture, because yes, there is this plate that is made out of uh, leaves, and it's recyclable, it's decomposable, not recyclable, but I can compost it, and it's biodegradable. But yes, there's wash a, a plastic bottle, a pet bottle that they give water in, and that's not going to decompose very easily. And there are quite a number of people in Vizag, for example, who've been asking people to, are you getting married? Is there some big event happening in your family? Could you please consider using paper cups or using some kind of reusable things at your events rather than going and using one-time bottles and one-time things? Because all of you must have noticed this. As soon as you find bottles which are either a quarter liter or half a liter, people pick up a bottle, take one sip or two sips, and throw away the rest of the bottle. I don't know how their heart allows them to do that, but it just pains me to see that. And so maybe you can come up with alternative materials that can help protect, or rather, store water. And once you finish drinking and you dispose it, it can be biodegradable. Just as some people have bought things where spoons and forks, edible spoons and forks, were available and are available for you to actually do. So you eat your food with those forks and then, or the spoons. And after you finish that, you can eat that spoon also, because it's made out of edible material. So there are opportunities, um, lots of opportunities like that in green tech. Any questions? Any questions or comments? Anybody? Does anyone want to share? Yes, the plastic labels and everything. So, thank you. That helps. A little bit of positive feedback is appreciated. At least as far as it's interesting and something that you're learning and it's useful. Yeah, well, there are exchangeable batteries that people are talking about. So I think one of the things that Ola is trying to do, believe, I'm not 100% sure if it's Ola or somebody else, but basically they're saying you can come in to a battery park just like a petrol bunk, and you come in, stop there, remove your current battery, give it there, and put the uh, take a charged battery, put it into your two-wheeler. Uh, I'm sure there are those. They do the same thing with Teslas in the US. So you should be able to do that. There are some challenges with that, primarily because people are worried what will happen. I will give a very nice battery of mine and somebody will give me a bad battery, but I think the company that is going to do that is probably going to protect us from that. Yeah, true. Next big thing is batteries and well, but even cell phones, right? Cell phones and cell batteries. But then because of the lithium ion batteries and lithium being of very low, not easily available, I have a feeling that they are going to start, they already are rewarding people in other parts of the world. I don't know when they'll start in India, but if you give your cell phone back, your old cell phone back, or if you go back and you drop off your battery, you get paid. For example, Coca-Cola and maybe Pepsi in the US has this policy, just like they had it with bottles. If you go and return the bottle caps, they will be they will give you, or the Coca-Cola bottles that you drink, they will give you 5 cents back. And so, you collect 10 of them, you get 50 cents back. 20 of them, you get $1. So you should be able to, companies are trying to be that way. Now, that's one thing. The another thing that we need to look at is we as consumers, we are many different things, right? You could be a startup, I could have a startup, we could be people who are teaching, we could be people who are learning, but pretty much all of us are consumers of something or the other. As consumers, I believe that we need to talk to the companies that we are buying from and telling them that, hey, you need to improve some of your practices. For example, some of the people have been talking and writing back to Amazon and saying, you're sending me this huge box of, cardboard box with one small item in there. Why do I need such a huge box for one small item? Can't you have smaller boxes? And then they have packing material in there. Why do you need that? Speaking of which, I don't know how many of you, I am pretty confident that a lot of people may not be aware of it, but there is a company in the US that is taking mycelium, mushroom uh, molecules, and they're growing water packaging material, which is reshapeable packaging material. Thank you. That's the name. Yes. Uh, that you can mold it into the shape that you want, so that if you have a cell phone, you basically put your cell phone, cover it with this material. It protects the material from any kind of shakes and bumps and breakage and so on. And once you open that and take your cell phone out, when you recycle or when you trash this material, because it's biodegradable, it's made from mushrooms, it will decompose, and therefore you're not harming the environment. So one of the things that we should be, as consumers, as human beings, if we care about the environment, we should be talking to industries, we should be thinking about ourselves, is how do we make our practices a lot more sustainable. So, just look at that, think about that, because one of the things that companies will always respond to is consumer feedback. And one of the things that we always we don't do is we complain among ourselves, but we never take the time to go and complain to the people that are going to bring about a change. Whether it's a politician that we complain to and say, hey, too much corruption, we say all politicians are bad, not understanding that, well, if we all tell them, at least 5% of the people tell them, hey, we expect more from you, they might change. We can talk to government officials, we can talk to industries, we can talk to children, we can talk to schools, we can talk to universities, we can talk to one another. But we only complain to one another and say, this is how it is. And I don't think that's going to change too many things. Let me just quickly look at the. Oh, thank you, Abhijit. We also love Vizag. uh, oh, you tried to bring them. What happened, Sivakrishan? How come you were not successful in bringing Ecovative to India? Maybe it's the same thing that's happening with Tesla coming to India. Tesla says there's too much of government regulation, and the government, of course, says, oh, they want to. Okay. They were talking to bigger companies. Yeah, and the government, of course, says, no, 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 we need to protect Indian industry, so therefore we are going to have, huge protective barriers. But protective barriers actually don't help. And I think that's where we need to look at examples from Bajaj and other companies like that, where they've taken on, Chinese companies, huge Chinese companies, and they've been able to succeed in many countries where the Chinese companies couldn't compete and they had to leave give space for Indian companies. I We don't need protection. We need more freedom to do a few things and to be able to get the material and to be able to do things without people stopping us with all kinds of, you don't have this form and you don't have that, bureaucratic stuff. Oh, okay. But I guess they probably are thinking of larger scale civication than what you were offering, I guess. But I'm really glad because that was somebody else thought of it. This is what we always say whenever we talk to any startups in and around Vizag and Andhra Pradesh and surrounding states. Don't ever think that your idea is unique or you're the only one who's thought about this idea. There are, other people who've thought of it, sometimes hundreds of them. What you need to do is thinking is not enough. You need to execute. And if you execute, then that's the huge difference between what you are doing and what somebody else is thinking of doing. That's one. And almost every idea has already been thought of by somebody. We are not that unique that we are very special. Okay. Thank you for the link. We'll go and check that out sometime. Okay. Let me see if there's. Okay. There are no other comments. So I will move on to the mobility section. Good. That's a good 3:30 halfway mark. So, my take on mobility happens to be anything that gets people from place A to place B and safely in the lowest cost possible. And we are mobile for multiple reasons. We are mobile because we have to go to work. We are mobile because we like to travel. We are mobile because we have to buy something. We are mobile just because we are mobile. Many people roaming on the streets on their bikes and cars saying, I want to go on a long drive. Just mobility is something that many human beings are innately do. And of course, there is this idea of our mobility which in some cases has been imposed on us because of certain restrictions, and mobility um, that is cheap, but it's unfortunately not accessible and not enough, like the number of trains versus the population. So you end up having overcrowded trains and general compartments and lots of people like that. Um, so uh, the why mobility part is something that I'm pretty sure all of you are aware, but we need to talk about mobility from an environmentally friendly perspective. Now, one of the things that they are talking about multiple things. Of course, they're talking about aeroplanes, not talking about, sorry, they're manufacturing aeroplanes which are electric planes. So one of the electric planes picture is there on the left side of your screen for you to see. And the other one happens to be, of course, two-wheelers. And I don't know if you can see that, but that's the Ola manufacturing, two-wheeler manufacturing facility, where Ola has promised that they're going to manufacture a two-wheeler every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds. And given that the Indian market is ready for this kind of a change, and there are opportunities outside of the country, Ola has bet big on these electric scooties, and those scooters, I think, are a huge step in the way that things are going to change in India in terms of mobility. There is a company that I know in Vizag, a young person who has been shuttling between Vizag and Vijayawada for quite a while, who has been working on an electric bike, a two-wheeler, motorcycle, as a matter of fact. And one of the things that you do when your idea that you try to work on is not really working out very well. What do you do when a startup idea that you're working on does not do as well as you thought it would, or people are not showing that much interest? Do you drop the idea? Do you stop? Do you give up? Do you say, I'll just go get a job, or I'll go do something else? By the way, just so that people who are observing, and I don't want you to complain. I've been using this bottle for many times, so please don't.
Sir, this you have told about this helicopter. So is that
Yes,
electric
it's not
helicopter
a
they are planning
helicopter.
to
It's
use?
actually a plane.
Okay, means we people can go long drive way
Yes,
also for a city.
yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, there are two kinds of things that they've put in there. There are rather three models that I know of. Not this company, different companies. One model company is where they have an electric plane, which as you can see is like a
Uh,
two-seater plane, and two-seaters get you to from shorter distances, and they basically have batteries that are going to be a backup battery. In case one of the batteries fails, you have the other battery to protect you. Then there is a second type of airplanes that they're manufacturing where they're saying that I'm going to give you a battery, but I'm also going to use
Right.
fuel, regular fuel. So in case
Okay,
the
means
battery
people can.
fails, yeah,
So means that plane have three different options. First is battery one, battery two, and
no,
fuse
no,
fuel as well for the emergency.
no. There are three different kinds. There's basically there are planes that are being manufactured where again startups, some of them with lots of
Hmm.
money that they got as grants or
Hmm.
whatever, where they're going and doing battery plane powered planes where they only have a main battery and a backup battery. A second aircraft different companies that are doing that is they have electric engine, batteries, but they also have a fuel backup. In case your battery
Oh,
runs out,
great.
you'll be able to do the fuel. The third one is completely solar. So they have this
My
huge
God.
wingspan, and with that huge wingspan, you're going to be able to fly, and you will be able to go long distances using that huge wingspan. And those are the third kind. Now, I also heard that this fuel, aircraft fuel, some of them are trying to use hydrogen based or something that is a lot less polluting instead of fossil fuels. So you have all four of those. But now that you said helicopter, you don't have helicopters per se, but I believe in Dubai and a couple of other places, they've already started experimenting with flying cars.
Yes, yes, flying taxi kind
So
of
these
thing.
are cars that are flying, and obviously, if they're flying, then they need to be, and human beings are going to use it. It's going to be automated, similar to self-driving cars and self-driving trucks and self-driving vehicles. So they have flying cars, and obviously, they want to make it easy so human beings won't have to do anything. So they are working on those things, right? And all of you are already aware it's not related to mobility as such, but delivery
Hmm.
through drones, whether it's
Yes,
pizza, whether it's medicines, whether it's emergency medicines to an accident location, whether it's in Vizag, there's been a team of people who've been trying very hard for rescuing people who are drowning in the sea. They send out a drone that goes up to the person who is drowning. The person can hold on to that drone and it floats on the water and it brings you back. So there are all these things that are available, but that's drone technology, not so much for the
hmm,
mobility that I'm talking about. Did I answer your question?
yes, yes, Divya.
Okay. All right. Moving on. So, when we talk about kinds of mobility, first of all, Uber and Ola have already changed the picture for all of us. For many years now, it's been more than a decade now, where you no longer need to. There are a generation of Indians who are basically saying, I don't want to buy a car. I don't want to have the hassle of driving a car. And why do I need to do that? Because I have somebody else will come pick me up. And two, the cost of owning a car and driving it and having it parked somewhere and finding parking space for it and all of that is a headache that I don't want. And therefore, what they are doing is they basically have already been choosing to not even learn how to drive a car. They're just using Ola, Uber, whatever vehicles that are available to them. And of course, Rapido and other companies have come in and they've changed the picture and they said we were going to do two-wheeler taxis or two-wheeler transportation. So somebody comes and picks you up, right? So you're aware of that. Then there is this company Yulu in Bangalore that is looking at the first mile and last mile connectivity. What is first mile and last mile connectivity? When you step out of your house, the nearest bus station in a BRTS system, bus rapid transport system or transit system, or the nearest metro station where most of the major companies are saying, yes, exactly, home to terminal and terminal to home, right? Or office to terminal, exactly. So, you basically, from the place that you live in, it's not easy for you to go and drive a vehicle, park the vehicle at the metro station or bus station, and then get into the bus or train, go to your location, and then again find another vehicle and drive to the office and back. It's too much of a hassle. So people, and that last mile connectivity is one of the things that most of the Indian, uh, most of us, we don't get plan it, or government in general has this idea of we've done things like this before and we will continue to do things this way. And so they don't plan for this aspect, which ends up being cluttering the whole space. Now, somebody has taken this as an opportunity and they said, I will create these things which are first mile, last mile connectivity things. And they have these small two-wheelers that you can see in the middle, the light blue color ones, that you can use to pick, to go from your house to your transit station, leave it there, get into the bus or the metro, go to your office, metro station or bus stop, get off, find another one of those, and go to your office. And they are using a lot of technology, including artificial intelligence, to take care of things there. Sorry, sir. That's nice. I did not know that. Which is actually an important point that I was going to come to, Sivakishan. So, the point that I was coming to was, well, so where are the opportunities in mobility? Where do you think are the opportunities in mobility?
Like
When you consider the
investing
situation. I'm sorry?
in means like, as a normal if someone is not investing money or not going for the startup, the opportunities there is only in share market of new upcoming mobility companies, like you told Yulu. So
Yeah,
if
agreed.
someone
Agreed. But
invest,
I'm talking about where as in a location, not what kind of companies.
hmm,
Yeah, in our country. Okay, yeah, battery charging stations, true. Um, yeah, but how long do you think that carpooling has already been tried, right? So I think you can look at, they have this thing called Waymo in the US, and one more that I forgot, where they basically are doing the carpooling where somebody is saying, I'm going from, let's say, point A to point B, and point B is 20 kilometers away, and I'm going to be driving all alone. So instead of me driving all alone, if there's somebody along the way that I can pick up, I'd be happy to pick up and they'll pay me money. And because for us, we have regulations, we are going to have the RTO is going to say, no, 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 you converted it into a taxi. Now your license plate needs to change. You don't have a license for this. You're not following the rules. Your colors need to change and so on. There's so many other things that come into the picture. Other countries are looking at, hey, let me enable people to do this much faster and better. So they're saying, okay, here's an opportunity to move this forward, and they've started that. I think there was this, was it BlaBlaCar that was there that started this car sharing and ride sharing thing that's there. Yeah, those are uh, auto components, autonomous driving. There are companies that are already doing autonomous driving, self-driving cars in India. Um, one of the opportunities that I thought, I want to hear your opinions on this. All of you who are hearing me, um, what if our nation, our country says, the central and state government say, anybody who has a house or an apartment, you can allocate, let's say, two-wheeler spaces or one car space for allowing people to come and charge at your station, at your location, at your house, and you can charge them for it, and there's a rate minimum rate or maximum rate that you can charge for it. That would pretty much one challenge that I see is vehicles is charging. And if you're going to say every other house or every house will have a charging station, then people will not be afraid to buy electric vehicles because the charging facilities are so many. Um, Obviously, there are safety standards involved. There are, lots of other things that you need to consider. But what do you think of the general idea of giving Indians the freedom to say, I will allow you to come and charge at my house. You just need to pay money, and the government, of course, I will pay my taxes if I make more than X amount of rupees. Isn't that going to free up things a lot more than if the government says you need to take a license for a police station and so on? Sorry, petrol bunk, not police station. You need to pay. You need to get a license. It needs to have these norms. It needs to
Yes.
do this. It needs to do that. Any thoughts?
Like it is super idea. Means we don't think about that. Means you are saying it's one kind of home delivery battery charging service, maybe home delivery
Not
battery
even.
charging
It's
service
not
like the
home
rest.
delivery. It's just available everywhere. That's all. Uh, yeah,
In
that's.
like
I
in this
agree.
what hmm,
So
like the sir
Shiva
city.
agreed. So Shiva Kishan, one of the things that you must have learned a long time ago is, whenever somebody proposes an idea, by the way, I'm glad that you pointed out problems with this idea. But
Hmm.
whenever somebody proposes an idea, one of the first things is see how it can work. Uh, okay, anyway, yes,
Uh,
but I know you understand what I'm saying. So, again, I'll come back to my question here. Where are opportunities in mobility? Which place is an ideal place for exploring opportunities in mobility? And again, I'm not talking about the technology, I'm not talking about the business parts that you are referring to. Evocation has been very active. Thank you so much for that. And of course, Ajay Kumar. Um, you've come up with a lot of ideas on what kind of technologies or what kind of business solutions, but I'm talking about physical locations.
means on this there is one small like mobility is a big issue when I was in Dubai, they have
No,
solved one. Um,
yeah, go ahead.
uh, Kabir is saying remote villages,
Yeah, well, but remote
right?
villages, the problem happens to be that one of the challenges that you see, which is why privatization may not be the best answer for many parts of the world, and definitely not, the only solution for India, is because if you look at saying, hey, I'm going to privatize, then one of the things that pretty much private companies look for, all private companies, because that's what they inherently do, is profit. And when you talk about profit, then you're looking at, um, that is why you did not have Airtel or Idea or many other of the private companies going in and providing services, cell phone services that BSNL and MTNL provided. So, Yeah, hey, that's heritage parts of the city, pedestrian only, that's great. You you even in places where you say pedestrian only areas, you can't take any vehicles there, then you start putting in some things. So for those people who are in places like, for example, Vishakhapatnam, we have we have a very long stretch of the beach road which spans about 17 kilometers, or maybe even 21 kilometers if you consider a little bit more of the area. So if you take that and if you say, well, I'm going to have these buses, hop on, hop off buses, which are electric, which are going to ply all the time, then people won't bring their vehicles, they'll park them somewhere else and they'll walk and so on. Yeah, hovercraft. No, but the problem with things that you're suggesting are all, complicated things. When you have a solution right where you are, since you're not coming up with it, I'm going to do this on my own. University campuses, college campuses and university campuses, especially university campuses. I mean, most universities have a sprawling campus. You have different departments. They're all spread all over the place. Going from one place to another is going to take time. And so you could look at mobility from multiple angles. You can look at things saying that, hey, this is either pedestrian only or bikes only, as into bicycles only area, and keep that way. You can look at exploring universities are places where we try out new technologies, where we try out new things, where we fail. You have an opportunity to work with students. You have an opportunity to work with companies. You have to opportunity to work on their problems. So, I agree that therefore maybe you should do the bicycling, and they go and ride a bicycle. They provide energy for lighting up bulbs in the university or make the ACs work in the university. So, and reward the students by saying you get attendance for one period if you're going to bicycle a stationary bike and produce so much power for yourself. Again, I'm not talking only from mobility as in look at transporting people from place A to place B, and the one time when students will walk, after that they won't walk and run. I completely agree with you, but I think you're misunderstanding my point. My point is not so much about moving people uh, within the campus. It's there, that is one aspect, but I'm also talking about this is a place where, because there is not so much of traffic to and fro, and traffic lights and so many other things, all the ideas that you presented, self-driving cars, the better material, batteries that last longer, battery exchanges, material science research, chemical engineering research, your business ideas, MBA students, BBA students, BBM students doing business idea research or business idea evaluations, contests, and so on. There's so much that can be done in a university campus, is what I mean. I don't so much mean, well, you need to make mobility easier in the university. And also, you're thinking only students. I am thinking of two segments that you should seriously consider, which uh, we typically ignore in India to a large extent. And those are actually three that we ignore, but the third one is not applicable. The third one is children, but the other two are senior citizens and people who are physically challenged. So if they are people who are physically challenged and you expect them to walk 4 kilometers, half a kilometer, 1 kilometer, isn't that unfair? And if you look at most places in India, especially government offices and so on, they don't have ramps, even for wheelchair access, let alone people walking up with their crutches. So, please spare a thought for those people who are not the typical majority. There is a reason why we need to work for or consider the minority. They are not a burden on us. As a matter of fact, they are the ones who are going to drive so many other things for us. So, therefore, look at that. I mean, I am talking from my experience where right now I see that at least Vishakhapatnam is really, really bad for people who are pedestrians. There is no footpath in any major area which is not occupied, and therefore people have to share the road with two-wheelers, four-wheelers, buses, trucks, lorries, and so on. And while there are people who basically shops and other establishments that have occupied all the sidewalks and footpaths, normal people itself find it difficult and you get lots of accidents, but none of them are reported. Most of them are not reported because they're invisible to us. And the police, I don't know if they really will give you that information unless you ask for it. So what happens to normal people? Now it's changed the same picture from normal to a person who is a senior citizen, a person who is a child, or a person who is physically challenged. And tell me, how are they going to go 100 meters safely without getting themselves into trouble and having to compete with traffic? So there are things that you need to consider in terms of mobility and figure it out. And as most of you would have realized by now, people have stopped walking. You can force students to walk as much as you want in the university, but they've stopped walking because it's faster, one, but it's safer to go on a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler to grab a packet of milk or a bottle of something rather than walk. So keep those in mind, and that is why I'm saying, given that universities are where bright professors, bright lecturers, bright students accumulate and they are coming together and you're able to talk, there are huge opportunities for eco as well as mobility startups. And I think that's something that all of you should seriously consider. I hope well, so Irene and Shiva, I don't disagree with you. Okay, cycle and pedal rickshaws, okay. Um, but there are many campuses, right, that you should be providing innovation. And I'm just saying, if you're not copying from somewhere, at least try to reinvent in that case and see what happens in a different campus, in your own campuses. Any questions? Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly. I completely agree. I mean, there are colleges that are being run, junior colleges in some cities that I know, which are running out of one apartment building. So it is not much walking other than a staircase. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just saying that, therefore, because you find that there are so many opportunities because of the diversity that we have, and of course, the diversity that we have in our country, there are many, many, many cases that you could look at and many examples that you can think of and say, hey, this is something that's an interesting idea, or let me try to work on this challenge, or let me work on this problem, and so on. One thing that I wanted to talk about but did not, so I'd like to circle back to one something that I mentioned at the very beginning. One of the when we talk about technology, green tech companies, one of the things that is happening is revolutionizing agriculture, and it's a serious concern for some of us who've been thinking about this in India. It's a serious concern for what's going to happen to all the 55% or 60% of Indians living in rural areas and dependent on agriculture, because agriculture is moving very swiftly towards vertical farming. When you have vertical farming, and vertical farming is being done indoors, obviously, in temperature controlled, artificial intelligence, using artificial intelligence, IoT devices, and so on, you don't need, you're not just getting 1 acre of crop. You're actually getting multiple acres because you're able to grow things in layers. And if you look up any material, there are tons of YouTube videos and other material on vertical farming. If you look up any of those, you will find that they use 90% less water, and they use 90% less space, and they are producing at a capacity where you don't rely on sunlight so much. They are power intensive, but then if you're able to generate using solar panels, you're able to do better, and therefore they are and they can be done in cities, because you no longer need huge areas. Parts of in New York City itself are being converted godowns and warehouses to do vertical farms, so that the food is fresh from farm to fork, is what they're saying. And normally farm to fork sometimes takes 24 hours to 48 hours. For apples to come from Kashmir to Vishakhapatnam is going to take 2 or 3 days. But if I can do something, not trees like apples, but vegetables and leafy vegetables and so on, if I can do that, half a kilometer from my house, I'm going to get food that is really fresh. And that's what's happening in Hyderabad, Delhi, Bangalore, and a few other places. So, please do consider opportunities in that, along with the plant-based food, when you're looking at opportunities inside your campuses. And okay, thank you for sharing that. All right, if you don't have any questions, that's it from me. I will wait for any other questions or comments from your end. And if not, I would like to thank you. I hope the organizers are around. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you for those of you who participated. I hope it was useful for you. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful
Yeah,
insights
very
with
great
examples
information,
into.
nice information.
Thank you. Have a nice day,
Yes.
everyone. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, we have come to the end of our day 4. I would like to thank everyone who made this possible, and I also thank Mr. Ratnakar sir, Mr. Krishnamohan sir, Mr. Srinivas sir for their valuable presentations and insights. Thank you
Thank you
all
so much, sir.
once again for coming. Jai Hind. Feedback link will be available in the chat box, and it will be available till 4:45. No link will be shared in WhatsApp group. Please build it